All right. Hello, hello.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
hi. So we have a very special guest today,
Super special guest.
an entrepreneur, a creative genius who's done a million different things. I'm also a friend. So Manon Lapierre from La Petite Bête. She has her own blog. She has her own YouTube channel. She does amazing things. It's mostly Manon. What would you define? What's your description of what you do? How would you define yourself?
You do ask the right questions. We started off being a blog and a YouTube channel, launched simultaneously, and the point was to cook recipes on air. And back then, in 2015, the market was very slim on YouTube for Quebecers cooking in French, and we started doing it after I did like a short analysis of the market, and I was like, okay, so Ricardo's on TV, Marie-Lou is on the web, but on YouTube, there's not much people, so let's just try this. We were both working full-time at the time, and it started with just cooking and recipes. We've expanded to travel, sometimes it's a lot of family as well. I think people just love to see us in action, to see what's happening. They want to see the dog, they want to see the kids. So it's become sort of an all around, but with cooking being the forefront.
So it's sort of what brings the family together. And I know, we've known, a full disclosure, Manon and I have known each other, like 5 or 6 years now. And Manon's always been a great creative force of nature with great ideas and very. I think you have a lot of comfort too on the camera and in front of the microphone. So I find it fascinating how you've managed to take this brand and turn it into really your business. This is an idea, a passion you had, and you created the business. You're selling what you're good at and able to get there. So. First of all, before we get into a little bit more of the details of what you do, tell us about, I know you've got how many, you were just telling us before, you've got how many regular subscribers, followers, or however you call it. Tell us a little bit more about how it works.
On YouTube, we are over 135,000 subscribers, but we have yet to receive our trophy from YouTube. I guess it got lost in the mail or something during the pandemic. I was very much looking forward to that little piece of decoration. The blog reaches more than 225,000 page views per month and close to 150,000 unique visitors. It's surprising how well everything is doing. We put content regularly, at least every week for the past 5 years. For the first 2 years, we were part-time. It was really sort of a hobby / sideline / a creative outlet. Because our day jobs did not allow us to be so creative. And then after 2 years, we started having, before the first 2 years, we started having contracts. And the more we were doing and working for ourselves on that bit, the less we wanted to work for somebody else. And the day job seemed to be irrelevant. So at some point, we kind of had to sink the boat and plunge. And I thought, what's the worst that's going to happen? The worst is going to happen if this is not working out. We can't make money out of this dream. And I just go back to work and you go back to work. And that's as far as we went in terms of planning. And it's turned out well. We do manage to live from it, which surprises the hell of our parents. They don't understand. What? You make money off YouTube?
Yeah. So I do have I have a question, Manon, because I know in your prior work when you were at P&G, you were part of, I think, PR department. Was there some kind of connection there, or was it really just you did this on your own, or did some of what you did in the past help you move forward into doing this?
You know what they say, everything you do ends up serving you, I guess. So when I was in college, I was looking for a job. I needed money. I ended up working for IBM. So I did sales for 5 years after college because that was the highest paying job I could find. Even though my dad worked in IT, he had an IT consulting firm and he was an entrepreneur. And I thought the only thing I didn't want to do is work in computers. So anyways, I did sales for a long time, so I know where you come from. And then I moved on to Procter & Gamble after 5 years, back then in the pet care industry, because they just bought IAMS and Yukonuba. So it was such a weird change. I went from selling mainframes to selling dog food. And it was so much more fun. I have to be honest, I love that job. Did that for a while. And then I think I did 5 or 6 years, and I worked, they called that back in the day, so that was 2001, my title was Influencer Account Manager, which I find very ironic because influencer now is how people call us. And I'm like, you can hear my puppy in the back, I think, sorry. So I do love pet care still. And so I moved on to P&G in PR and communications in 2007, I believe. And that to me was such a fun role because I was touching all of the brands at P&G. So one day I could talk about baby care to journalists, and the next day I'd be talking Olay and Pantene and doing fashion shows and whatnot. So it was a lot of fun for many, many years. And the more I was doing that job, the more I was, first of all, the whole team was in Toronto. So I was doing what everybody's doing now. I was working from home, working remote, and doing a lot of conference call. The good news is there was no Zoom. So I didn't have to dress up. And so I did that. And after many years, it started to getting less and less creative because we were paying, and you know this, Paul, we were paying agencies to be the creative. And our role was managing budgets and explaining why we needed to do something or why we didn't need to do something. And in 2016, I did the Rio Olympics, which I would say was the highlight of my career. I traveled there for 3 weeks, brought in 8 journalists from Canada representing a slew of brands. We had athletes that were signed with the Olympics. And coming back from the Olympics, I think I realized I needed more of that type of role and the creative behind it. And that's where I had started La Petite Bête before that, a year before. So we launched in 2015. And that's where the mental framework started, that this is what we should do full time. So my husband went all in, which is a whole lot of fun. He loves the technique, like he loves buying cameras, is what I'm trying to say. And now he has a reason to do so. And microphones and whatnot. And I do a lot of the research and development and testing recipes, and I'm the host, and I negotiate. So all the sales background comes into effect, and I do the bulk of the marketing, managing the social medias, like cross promotions against platform. That's all what I do.
I wanna jump in there because of course we want to talk marketing and sales. And when you say you negotiate, so you're talking about all your sponsorship agreements, because you get YouTube revenue, you get some blog revenue, but you probably also supplement that with some sponsorships.
Yeah, definitely. The YouTube money is not. Unless you're super cool and a gamer / millennial that's super popular, most people don't live off the YouTube money, or what we like to call it. It's a nice secured revenue, I would say, and unless YouTube goes down, which again, who knows? But it's revenue that you can't live off it. So the bulk of our revenue is in sponsorships and collaborations with brands. Sometimes it's stuff that people don't even realize we do. So we produce, sometimes we produce content for the brands. Sorry about that. And as we produce for them, nobody knows this, but you could see my hands on a cooking recipe for a brand, that they use on their social channels. So we are essentially videographers, our own team of creatives for some of their brands. And then there's the book that I've put a whole lot of time into, which is a camping cookbook called En Feu, so on fire, which is coming out May 11th. And there's a whole lot of, we've been doing camping for many years, so we're hoping that this is going to be another, maybe not a huge revenue, but a small revenue. So it's Exactly.
Now, do you seek out the sponsors or do they seek you out? How does that work?
It goes both ways. I'll be honest. One of my challenges is putting more time in prospection and calling and pitching and just doing it on a regular basis every week and doing it again and again. Sometimes I just don't find the time because we're so busy, and then months after I realize I should have been doing it all along. So it's yeah, so it's sort of a circle. But yeah, very often the agencies that we work with love the work that we do, and they come back for another client or another piece of work for the same client. So it tends to be a lot of repeat. We have one long-term customer. It's been 3 years with IGA, so Sobeys. We produce content for them. We produce content as influencers as well. So it goes both ways. Some of our content lives on their platforms. And we also, it's good because there's just this morning I was at grocery again. So it's a place I hang out with.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So Fab, as usual, I'm hogging all the questions, but Manon, I'm happy to hear you admit that you're probably not prospecting as much as you can. We know this really good podcast where you can go learn how to do all that stuff. So if you go backwards and listen to all our stuff, we can totally help you in doing that properly. But Fab, I want to let you ask questions because I always hog the question. So your turn. Go for it.
Oh, fair enough. Listen, thanks for sharing the story. But my question would be more kind of like you were saying, I don't know if it was offline or when we started, that, there wasn't a lot of French cooking shows on YouTube when you started. If you were to start now, like would you do the same thing? Would you approach it differently? Because there's probably more competition now.
Oh, there's definitely way more people now than there were in 2015. If I were to start today, I think there's still a place for it, but you really need to distinguish yourself in some way from the slew of different channels that are everywhere. How, I don't know, I don't have a magic recipe. In our case, it ended up being just us. And we got lucky but we still have to work at it very hard because the algorithms are so much harder than they used to be, all of them, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. They do what they want to do to make their own money. They don't really care whether you're popular or the views are coming or whatnot. So it's and a lot of YouTubers and bloggers are burning out, essentially. So it's a lot of work, and the amount of time I've helped people, friends of friends who wanted to know how to do it because it's their dream. And literally like 6, 8, 9 months after, never hear from them. It just died on its own. But the number one thing that we did when we had this idea, I told Lionel, which is my partner, I said, if we're going to do this, if you want to do this, we have to commit to one video a week, minimum 2 years. That was it. That was the deal. It was like, there's no vacation, there's no excuses, we had twins in 2015. They were 11. They were 4 years old. What? No, that can't be. Yeah, no, 2006. No. Okay, so they were 8, 9. So, but still, we had kids at home, and we're busy people. So that was sort of the promise, and that I think that's how we were able after 2 years to go full time, because we realized it did work out. And at the time, there was no risk. We're still working our full job. So, but I would say work is no secret, and then. And have a great idea. Professional. I think a lot of people try to distinguish themselves by being, I would say, vulgar or super funny. But then when you try to have deals with companies after, it's going to be challenging. So in our case, we always stay professional, thinking in the long run.
No more swearing, Paul.
But you say, luckily we're not looking for sponsors. I only swear once in a while. But Manon, you say to stay professional, but you're very much yourself, right? I mean, I know you, and the Manon we see on and off screen is very similar. Like, wouldn't you say? Well, I was going to say, isn't it more important to be authentic than to be professional? I mean, I would challenge you on that, because you're professional, but is that not being authentic today? Doesn't that mean being professional? in a way?
Well, I just happen to be authentically politically correct. But yeah, I'm myself. But you know, if your authentic self is super shocking, it might be okay, but it might be, you know, self-limiting eventually. So
for sponsors,
you have to, yeah. But for us, I am myself, and it's how we chose the brands we work with as well, because you always pay for it when you choose wrongly. When you choose for the money, you're like, oh, you know, I don't really eat that thing. I think it's gross, but I'm going to do it. You pay for it.
Have you made those mistakes? Have you made a few of those mistakes where you took a sponsorship?
I have, and it bit back.
Okay.
It bit back. We got lucky. It didn't show, but it bit back in my soul and in the negotiation. And it's like the universe was trying to tell us, you see, you shouldn't have done it, because the agency was horrible to deal with. The client was horrible to deal with. We produced content that they didn't like. It just went to hell. And I was like, that's a good life lesson.
Okay.
So I have done it once, and that was enough.
So authenticity is very important, obviously, because then you know, I think if you're not authentic, then you end up, you know, down a line that makes you exactly challenge your choices, and then it probably shows, right? Yeah. Maybe it showed, like every time you decided the thing, you probably did this.
I think more importantly, I think authenticity, and it's such a key word that I'm starting to hate it, but authenticity, because we're maybe older, I'm able to say that it's important for your own soul. If you're not authentic in what you do, it will, and having worked in PR, and PR is a dangerous line of work, because sometimes you have to say things that you don't personally agree with, and it's something you have to live with, right? So
you work for someone else, and you have to go out there and push a brand that you might not always agree with, then you feel like it's what is soul sucking, they call it, or
exactly. And I think I honestly see a lot of influencers and YouTubers and whatnot that may not be authentic. I see a lot of Instagram stars. Their feed is so boring. Like everything is beige, everything is perfect, everything, you know, every photo took like a day to take, but it's like all the same. Or sometimes it's just the text is ridiculous. You see this girl in bikini and she's talking about this soul searching, and you're like, what's this image got to do with your text, girl? Like, this has nothing to do with what you're saying. So obviously they're trying to sell their content. Not necessarily based on authenticity. So I don't know. I feel for my own soul and for our souls, and as parents, and it's important. But I tend to say it may not be the key to success for everybody. Some people seem to be achieving success not being authentic.
Yeah, but I mean, I know Fab and I decided this right from the start. So we're going to be ourselves, right? And that's like,
yes.
As you can probably because once in a while I do swear, right? I'm like, I'm tired of this fucking thing, and
It's okay. I think everybody swears now. Sorry, the puppy's coming in. Okay. Real life.
Yeah, exactly, real life. But what I guess what I'm asking, and you also say you're older now. I mean, you're not old, by the way. You're young, but do you see a difference in the younger YouTubers? Like the ones just coming up now, and this is a question to you, but to everyone out there, is or not the YouTubers, but the people who are doing using social media at different levels. Is there a difference in their approach? Is there already or do you just see that everyone who's authentic and reasonable does eventually grow into something?
Definitely not everybody tends to grow into something. There are a ton of really great creators out there that don't seem to achieve success, and you just follow, and I don't know, even as we have a lot of people who are saying, like, I don't understand we don't have more views on this video. I don't know. I don't understand sometimes the market, even between geographies, it's so different. But I feel there's a place for everybody. I feel the new YouTubers, can achieve success, but the algorithm is not making it easier because there's too many people.
Right.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
It's just no, it's okay, by the way. It's chill. We like the dog. I have a dog at home. didn't bring her here. But
she's been in our house 4 days. So new puppy alert for everybody who's listening. Say hello to Shelby. She's a rescue puppy and she's acting like it. She's a good girl.
Fab also gets his cat that goes across the screen once in a while, but I think he locks him.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, it's so I think it's such a tricky question. I wish I could say I have a recipe to be a success. I don't even consider ourselves like a huge success. What we have achieved is growing constantly. I wish we had one video that went totally viral and we had 16 million people watch it and then it kicked off everything. This is not how we looked at. It was just pure work, and it continues being a lot of work. And sometimes it is too much work, whereas it's just a constant daily managing of the comments and the community and responding to questions and just being there. We don't have a team. I'm not a Ricardo. During the pandemic, everybody started making bread. Our number one video is cocotte bread on YouTube. So everybody started watching that video, and then I became a 1-800 hotline for sourdough making or bread making, and I would get message. Literally, I had to put an automated message on Messenger on Facebook and Instagram saying we're a team of one responding to messages. So I'm sorry, I can't answer all of your questions, and I'm sorry, but the dialogue was just going very, very busy for a long time. But it's good. We were lucky during the pandemic.
It went viral.
Yeah.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the stats were crazy. You could see
when you say working, like the work that you put in. So I understand now it's a lot of community management, but in the early days, what would you say where would you spend the most of your time? Like, was it just producing the video? Was it coming up with the ideas? Where would you spend most of your time?
You kind of have to balance it. Otherwise, you'll never make it. You have to put time into research and development and seeing what the market is looking for during a certain period of time. So the recipes have to make sense. If everybody's gone gluten-free and you're pushing out bread, which is what I did. It didn't pay in that time, but it paid in 2020 finally. Every time we pushed out a video, I would cross promote on Instagram and on Facebook. We did teasers of the videos. So it was sort of a balanced amount of work. And just the production itself, the filming is not what takes the longest, I think. It's the editing and developing the recipe, writing it on a blog. And I wish I had more time to do more marketing-oriented content, like the BuzzFeed type of, 10 recipes to make when you're depressed or whatever. I don't do that. And I have tons of recipes that are sitting on the blog, and I know I could repurpose it all. I have so many ideas. I think that's when you hit your X, when you're doing finally what you're meant to be doing in life, the problem is then you run out of time. There's no balance, because then it's your dream and you're working towards it. And then the dream never ends. You wake up in the morning thinking, oh my God, we could do this. And now we just launched our own podcast it's like stories around the campfire. It has nothing to do with recipes. It was just a pure, walking on the street, walking the dog and thinking, oh, I love this kind of podcast. We should do this. And then Lionel was like, okay. And then, we have time. But I think that's the fun part. The managing it all after is hard. It's challenging. But there's no more weekends and sometimes there's no evenings. But I don't complain. I wouldn't go back to working the big blue chip job. I don't know that I could do it anymore.
So it's funny you say that now, because what I'm hearing, and I think it's a bit the same thing for Fab and I, who are now doing, working for ourselves and moving forward, is that and it's true. I hear you saying that, and it's so true. It's like I work 7 days a week, not because I don't want to, but because I do want to, because it is my passion and it does light me up. And I think of things that I can do in my trainings or in my coachings, and I think of things we can do on the podcast. And I know sometimes, I'll text Fab at crazy hours and he'll answer me at crazy hours. And,
I love it.
Yeah, and I know Fab, has 2 young children, younger than my kids are older than yours, Manon, and Fab's are even younger. So I know we're also managing your families, but what I find interesting here is that even though it's your dream, it's still hard work. It's still, it's still really hard work. And there's still some days where you probably say to yourself, oh, I need a break or I need a vacation. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very often. And working with my husband or partner is a whole other, challenge. Some people are complaining right now that they're 24/7 with their spouse for the first time ever in the past many months, and some of them didn't make it either. But for us, it was a worry, I'll be honest, when we launched this full time. I thought, this could break us. Honestly, like I didn't say it out loud, but I was sure as hell thinking it. And we had to learn to talk to each other, and it's hard. Sometimes he'll show me a video, and I'm like, and he's like, "What do you mean, And I'm like, "Well, I can't. I may not talk the same way to him that I would talk to a colleague or an agency. I have to sort of choose my words. But what I did realize is that both of us being happy working for ourselves and our dream and letting our creative juice run makes for a happy household, all in all. So the kids are happy, everybody's happy. It worked out, but maybe we got lucky.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask something more along the brand side? So you say you have sponsors and you work with agencies and brands, like, because our audience tends to be like business leaders and stuff like that. Like, what advice would you give to a business leader or a marketing leader or a sales leader, like whoever who wants to work with a media personality or a blogger or an influencer? Like, how should they pick them? Like, how should they reach out? Like, how should they work with them?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, number one, agencies might hate me for this, but I wouldn't give 100% of my trust into an agency. Like, now that I've worked on both sides of agencies, I hired agencies for 13 years. I didn't quite understand how they work things. I realized that very often they work with the same people and over again, just maybe by lack of time or of developing relationship with other people. I feel like, and the agencies, the staff keeps going around, and it's hard. Number one, if somebody comes to you if you're a company leader or a brand person, and they are telling you they have a true love for your brand, and they have less numbers, maybe they might have less subscribers or less followers on Instagram, they're probably worth way more than the person on Instagram that's so much bigger and that will take that one-off contract and do it for you, but will never repeat it again. They'll just do it, they'll take the money, and then the next day it'll be somebody else, and the day after it'll be somebody else. In my perspective, I reach out to companies and brands that I truly, truly love, and I explain why. Like, for example, I pitched the how do you call those? Coleman ovens? Coleman, the brand, the camping brand?
Yep.
I pitched them just this morning. And I said, we've never worked together before, but, I'm coming out with this cookbook. And I talk at length about remembering my dad cooking on the green Coleman oven while camping when I was young, and I still cook on it. And I said, there is something there, just look at our media kit. This is me telling you I love your brand. And if I were a brand person or a marketing person or an agency, I would put these files or these pitches aside in a precious place, very close by, for when I do have projects. Because I think that is the key. If there's a pure connection, it's going to be worth a lot. And that person, also what I would recommend is if you're going to be working with influencer, social media stars, or whatever, even the regular star system, I would tend to push for longer contracts from the get-go, and instead of one-offs, because it does help. In my case, whenever I have long-term contracts, like several months or several pieces of content, I always go over and above. I want the client to be happy. I want to make sure that they know we love them. If I don't know, let's say it's Tabasco. I love Tabasco. I've always loved Tabasco. I pitched to the agency who represented Tabasco and I said, you don't understand. Like, I put Tabasco on my eggs in the morning. I love your brand. And I said, I have an apron that I bought in New Orleans in 1998, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up working for Tabasco for a few contracts here and there. And it was one of the good brands for 2020, actually. But that relationship started years ago. And I continue putting them forward because I do love the brand. So I'll do a grilled cheese and I'll have Tabasco on the side, and they didn't pay me for it. I just put it there because I love them and I love the people and I want to pursue that relationship. So yeah, sign longer term, sign people who truly love your brand and invest in that relationship, because that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing agencies pitch one program or one brand or one company the same day with 15 influencers. And if you're following social media as I am, it gets tiresome super fast, because I'm on Instagram and I'm like, everybody's talking about that brand of coffee and how they love that brand of coffee. And some of them may say they're paid. Most of them, all the influencers are really good about disclaiming their relationship. The stars are not as good. TV is not saying they're getting paid to place a product. We all know that. But the influencer will mention it. But I don't understand why brands would do that. Unless you're really, if the point is creating a buzz, then fine. But it's just a repeat of the same old thing. It's like watching the same ad spoken by 15 different people on the same channel. And that's what will happen on social media. We end up following the same people. So yeah, those are my top tips.
And it's very interesting, because what I like there is that your authenticity, your desire or your connection to that brand will obviously transfer into a better relationship for you as well, because you're saying, well, I believe in Coleman, for example, because we always used it. So it's going to be easy for you to relate to it, and it's true relationship, right? Even though you might say I'm sponsored by Coleman, you'll still say, but I use this as a little kid, and I'm happy to be sponsored by Coleman. So what I'm hearing a lot of here is authenticity. I'm hearing a lot of, be true to who you are, but be smart about who you also try to connect with, right? Don't sell your soul to the devil, right? Go for the things that you connect with. That's really, really interesting. Fab, I'm letting you ask you the next question, because I know I'm going to shoot off on
that was a long answer. Poor Fab. Yeah.
That's okay. It's super interesting for me anyway. But
answers, Fab. That was a great question. Go for it.
I'll stick on the brand side of things. A lot of the examples we hear, even the ones you just shared, like Coleman and Tabasco, tend to be like B2C brands. But have you seen examples of B2B brands, like going back to your IBM days? Could you see an IBM doing influencer campaign with people obviously talking about their mainframes and whatnot? Do you see it happening on the B2B side?
Sure. Like as long as you know where your clients are hanging. So your clients might not be on Instagram. They might be on LinkedIn, or they might be watching, I don't know, some training online. You just have to find where they are.
Right.
So that's the key. And then what do they want to hear? I think a lot of what I'm seeing that seems to be popular right now is a lot of the trainings that are like super reduced. Like, you get this 3,000 value training for $32 only this month. It feels like infomercials from the 80s, but it seems to work. They seem to sell a lot. And I'm sure you could sell those to companies as well. Right. And, IBM, it was such a... In my days, selling mainframes, it was all about data security. And data security is still on the minds of the clients and the consumers, even more so now that the consumer actually know that you lost their data to, pirates and whatnot. So I feel any companies could sell directly. They just have to know where and how, and have the right message that's tweaked to their audience.
That's great. That's good. And it's interesting, Manon. Do you you get often a chance to share this knowledge with other people other than people who are connecting you? Like, do you talk to other YouTubers? Do you talk to other people doing the same thing? Like, is there a community of people who do this kind of thing that you're doing that actually share stories and share information, or do you tend to all just be in your own universes, trying to manage the day-to-day?
There's a bit of helping going on I would say group pages like YouTube Quebec but it's sort of, it's a mix between some people being super protective of what they do and how they go about it, and other people, sharing and oversharing. So, I have considered, because of my, our particular situation is that we're probably the youth and the very young YouTubers we know, but the more experienced business-wise. And we have done meetings where we were with YouTube when they came to Quebec, and we realized that was sort of an asset that we had. And I thought for a while, should I do a training online or develop a group and say, we're willing to help you? The only thing is it takes away from the dream. I think it would be a good business opportunity. I think I could make money doing it because I do have a good mix of understanding how the brands think and how the companies think, and how as content creators we can help them. And I've considered doing, even at the beginning, I thought I would do some consultation work, but I never had time or the need yet to approach companies to do it. But I think there's a lot of sharing going on, but there's a lot of people charging for it. We do it in smaller groups. Like I have a few friends in the same area that we share with, and we will say this agency and blah, blah, blah. And what do you think about those? And how much would you charge to do something like this? And I feel that's super important, because what's happening right now is that there's so many influencers coming in, and in order to make themselves a place, they do everything for free. So they will say, oh yes, of course, I'll take photos and you can give me your mayonnaise. And I'm like, okay, you don't live on mayonnaise. you have to.
No, you don't live on mayonnaise?
Yeah, so it's a jungle, literally, and it's happening more and more. And I have trust that this system, I had trust. I should say that they would, the people who don't do it professionally or with the right reasons or doing it for free would eventually sort of disappear, but it's not the case. They're sort of multiplying. So it's becoming very challenging, but I do think as well that agencies and brands do understand the value with the work, with the type of work that we do. Okay. But it's hard. It's a very challenging jungle.
Yeah.
Cool. We should probably think about wrapping it up. We've been doing you for almost 40 minutes now.
Yeah. Hey, so Manon, thank you so much for coming on. I think we have to have a follow-up because I have about a million other questions that I want to ask you. But it's been really helpful.
I'll be happy to.
It's
I can talk. This is my job.
We sort of get to ask you questions about the behind the scenes, right? The reality, because I'll admit, like, okay, so Fab and I have this podcast, but I don't do a lot of YouTube stuff. A lot of what I do is behind it's training, it's corporate B2B training. So I find it fascinating. I follow a lot of YouTubers in various subjects. Like I'm a car guy. I follow Hoovie's Garage, which is I find hilarious, and then I follow people on guitar stuff, and then I follow salespeople. But I've yet to talk to someone who actually lives that reality. So what you gave to us today, I found was very, very informative. And what I take away from it, again, is that you are an authentic YouTuber who loves what you do and puts your heart and soul into it. And I want to really thank you. And we're going to turn off the live feed. Sorry, people, but Manon, stay on because we want to chat with you a little bit more.
Okay.
But everyone, thank you very, very much for joining us. Again, a great guest, and it was fun. Fab, any final words? Again, I'm hogging the. You
closed it off super well, man. Thank you, Manon. That was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.